Hello, dear viewers. You're watching RTD's English News Edition. Here are our top lines for this evening. Thank you. The arrival of the President of the Republic in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, this afternoon to participate in the 30th Ordinary IGAD Summit. This morning as well, the head of state received the President of the Turkish National Assembly. Namibians vote in presidential and legislative elections. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, has arrived this Thursday afternoon to Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital, where he will participate in the 13th Ordinary Summit of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. Upon his arrival, President Guelleh was welcomed with great honor at the foot by the Ethiopian President Sahle Work Zewde and the Prime Minister of Finance of Ethiopia, Mr. Ahmed Shire, in the presence of our ambassador to Ethiopia, Mr. Mohammed Idris, Djibouti's representative to the IGAD. A folk group greeted the President of the Republic with traditional dances and music. Subsequently, President Guelleh and Ethiopian President Sahle Work Zewde had a first one-on-one meeting in the VIP lounge of the Pole airport. The discussions focused on current issues in the IGAD countries and on cooperation between Djibouti and Ethiopia, as well as on the next summit of IGAD heads of state scheduled for tomorrow in the Ethiopian capital. While several topics are on the agenda of this summit, it is the adoption of a common position of the organization's member countries on the security of the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden that will remain the main theme of this summit. The adoption of a collective defense and security strategy by IGAD member countries on the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden is becoming increasingly important in view of the many tensions involving major powers around these sensitive maritime routes. Under the aegis of President Guelleh, the Republic of Djibouti, which has acquired an important culture in the design and elimination of integrated security and defense coalitions, will share its experience in this field with the work of this IGAD meeting. The Council of Ministers of the member countries of IGAD held this morning at the Sheraton Hotel in Addis Ababa its 20th ordinary session. This meeting was intended to prepare the documents that will be dealt with at the level of heads of states tomorrow, with the participation of the President of the Republic and other leaders of the IGAD countries. Djibouti was represented at the meeting of IGAD by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, with the participation of Mohammed Idris, Ambassador of Djibouti to Ethiopia. The agenda included a review of the organization's structures, the situation in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, current issues in the IGAD countries such as the situation at the reconciliation process in the south, the fight against terrorism, particularly in Somalia, were also part of the discussions. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, received today, Thursday, late morning, at the Palace of the Republic, the President of the Grand Assembly of Turkey, Mustafa Şentop, on an official visit to Djibouti, where he is among other distinguished guests at the 42nd meeting of the Speakers of the Parliaments of the African Union that our country is hosting these days. the relations of friendship and cooperation between the two countries and the peoples and the ways and means to promote and further develop them were at the center of discussions between President Gele and the senior Turkish official. Djibouti and Turkey have privileged partnership in a large number of key sectors, including higher education and the construction of major projects of interest. In the field of higher education, the success of Djibouti-Turkey cooperation had recently been illustrated by the fruitful cooperation between the two countries in the establishment of the Djibouti Engineering School. As for the construction of major works of interest, the two countries have demonstrated their ability to cooperate synergetically, in particularly through the construction of Djibouti-Turkey Friendship Dam, located in Wa'a, a 38-meter high and 210-meter long dam. This structure is bursting with many adventures, including the fight against towards the rehydration of the water, as well as in the locality and the prevention of situation in ports and free zones. The President of the National Assembly, Mr. Mohammed Ali Hamed, the Minister of Agriculture, Mohammed Ahmed Awale, Ambassador of the Republic of Djibouti to Republic of Turkey, Aden Hussein Abdullahi, Secretary General of the Presidency, Mohammed Abdullahi Wais, and the Djiboutian parliamentarian, Mohammed, took part in the meeting between the head of state and the President of the Turkish Grand Assembly. It should also be noted that the Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey to the Republic of Djibouti, Mr. Levent Sehenkaya, was also present at these meetings. In a statement to the national television, the Turkish parliament Speaker mentioned his discussions with the head of state, who he addressed with a number of issues in the forefront of relations between the two countries. And for his part, the Speaker of the House of Representatives of Djibouti, Mr. Mohammed Ali Hamed, has talked about the medical relations between Djibouti and the Republic of Turkey. The 42nd Conference of the African Parliamentary Union APU opened today in Djibouti, co-chaired by the Speaker of the Djibouti Parliament, Mohammed Ali Hamed, and the Speaker of the National Assembly of Burkina Faso and current President of the African Parliament Union. These meetings will bring together until tomorrow, November 29, members of this continental organization, Djibouti parliamentarians, and representatives of diplomatic and consular corps accredited in Djibouti. The opening ceremony was attended by Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, the President of the National Assembly of the Central African Republic, the Secretary General of the Arab Inter-Parliamentary Union, Mustafa Sintab, the President of the Grand Assembly of Turkey, the Vice President of the Algerian National People's Assembly, Farhat Arqib. During this two-day conference, the conference will discuss current continental issues, including the promotion of a diversified economy.
Been privileged to consider and collaborate with the National Assembly of its development. The Speaker alluded this in his statement just now. I confirm that Interparliamentary Union is committed to pursuing this cooperation. Let me also thank the African Parliamentary Union for invitation to this important high-level event. I wish to congratulate you on your well-organized program for its fulfillment, promising discussion on policies, frameworks, and recommendations to improve all of African and contributions to the youth of democracy.
The President of the National Assembly of Burkina Faso and current President of the African Parliamentary Union APU outlined all the work accomplished by the APU and future projects in his speech. In his intervention on this occasion, the Speaker of the Djibouti Parliament, Mohammed Ali Hamed, stressed the importance of contributing to our institutions. The agenda of the conference that brings us together does not divide from the usual practice. The themes of our African home, the UPA, are unavoidable and are important in more than one way, he said. Peace, security, and development in Africa are indeed an essential trend for development of the people of that continent in particular and the planet in general. Africa is a melting pot of intertwined cultures of good auspices, but instability remains a real obstacle, he added. peace, it is correlated security are therefore the foundations of any progress in societies or even any improvement in life on earth. It symbolizes the dream of a bright tomorrow, certainly and in every respect better than the present, has indicated the President of the National Assembly. In closing these speeches, the Prime Minister first welcomed the African parliamentary delegation and friends of Djibouti. Let's listen to him.
C'est particulièrement agréable de vous accueillir dans notre pays à l'occasion de cette 75e session du comité exécutif de la 42e conférence des présidents de l'Union parlementaire africaine.
Pan-African parliamentary diplomacy is a key lever that must accompany our public policies and our efforts to set Africa on the path to inclusive economic development and social progress. During your work, you had fruitful exchanges and intense reflections to find answers to all the questions on the agenda of your meetings. Of course, Africa needs its people, its men and women, its sons and daughters, to achieve the noble and ambitious goal we have for our youth, for our women, and simply for the people of our continent. Ladies and gentlemen, our country has suffered from the horrors of colonizations and the political crisis of the aftermath of independence. Even today, our dear Africa seems to be prey and sensitive to all violence and disasters. Hence, our aspiration and our daily struggle for sustainable peace is the essential element for any human development. Peace is not just a word, but is a process that is patiently and resolutely built. We must find the strength and mental resources to build the lasting peace. This one must settle down by gradually leveling off and enter the mores. We must shape the right behaviors and change attitudes. We must change our paradigm and root in our hearts and good consciences the healthy minds and reasons rather than the violence and the noise of the boots. It is the peace that the African Union is working to consolidate where it exists and to build it where it has destroyed. The Africa we want, an integrated, propitious and peaceful Africa, as stipulated in Agenda 2063. This is the fundamental objective that all of us, members of the Union, as well as non-African countries, and the regional, international and international organizations gathered here, must solve and cultivate. The feedback we have received from your 2 days of work is rewarding and encouraging. You have succeeded in sharing your approaches on all the issues on the agenda of your parliamentary season. I believe that the outcome of your discussions has been a consensus that meets the expectations of your summit. The conclusions of your inter-parliamentary season are promising, and we are confident that all the challenges before you will be overcome together. Ladies and gentlemen, peace, democracy, and development are part of the culture of the African Parliamentary Union. In Africa, our secular values, our systems of thought, and our forms of spirituality that have nothing to envy anyone are all assets for building peace and sustaining. Our culture and artistic wealth, our knowledge transmission channels are endless source of water for our culture of peace and respect to our fellow human beings. Our cultural diversity, solidarity, and rejection of violence are so sacred and rooted in our customary law systems. During the exchange, the theme that formed the basis of the discussions focused on youth and its importance in promoting democracy, peace, security, and the role of law in African countries. We have also considered the promotion of diversified economy and local processing of your communities for the employment of women and youth. This involves not only cultural education but also conflict prevention around cross-border natural resources and the promotion of a culture of peace. This also requires the strengthening of governments in all its dimensions to counter new threats to peace and security on the continent. There are all themes that must be at the heart of the African peace and security architecture. I would like to note the important role played by women and young people in conflict resolutions and the promotion of a culture of peace in Africa.
Early today, Thursday, the Minister of Defense in charge of relations with the Parliament, Hassan Omar Mohamed Burhan, accompanied by the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, visited Camp Mariama in the locality of Wea, where the Hill 7 Battalion is located and is leaving for Beledweyne. This inspection visit is part of the rotation of the Hill 5 Battalion deployed since 2017 in Somalia. It should be recalled that the Republic of Djibouti is deploying 2,000 soldiers, both men and women, operating under the AMISOM banner as a part of the peace process in Somalia. Arriving on board the Dolphin helicopter, Hassan Omar Mohamed Burhan and General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim were accompanied by Brigadier General Tahir Ali Mohammed, Chief of the Defense Staff, and Major General Hassan Ali Kami, Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces Advisor. Upon their arrival, the commission was welcomed by Colonel Major Mohammed Kayat Gele, head of the Logistics Division, and Colonel Mohammed Elmi Habani, head of the Operations Division. Among the prominent civil authorities were the presence of the Prefect of the City of Arta, Mr. Mohammed Sheikh Hassan, and the President of the Arta Regional Council, Mr. Elmi Bouh. On the military side, the senior officials of the Djibouti Armed Forces, the Director of the Arta Military Academy, Colonel Major Mohammed Ali Obsiye, and the Chief of the Rapid Action Irajam, Colonel Ibrahim Ali, participated. The Minister of Defense, in charge of relations with the Parliament, stood in front of the medical workshop stand. The Minister was able to listen to the explanations on the administrative procedure of the medical documents attesting to the suitability of the deployed members. Then the Minister of Defense, accompanied by the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, jointly conducted a review of the troops. It should be recalled that Battalion Hill 7 is under the command of the Battalion Commander Abdullahi Musa and has been in Mariama for the past year to perfect their specific military operational training before any deployment. The Minister of Defense, in charge of relations with the Parliament, Mr. Hassan Umar Mohammed, then presented the diploma to some soldiers who had received specific training. This 21-day training course was designed to train demining and explosive specialties to counter the harmful actions of the Al-Shabaab militia. This training, which is essential for any military personnel before deployment, was led by experts from the United Nations Mine Action Service. This unit is responsible for combating the damage caused by anti-personnel mines and their use in conflicts. This training laid the foundation for knowledge of the fight against devastating use and effects of mines in conflicts and will be further developed upon their arrival on Somali soil. On the starting point, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, on behalf of the Minister of Defense in charge of relations with the Parliament, addressed the troops to galvanize them and remind them of the mission. The Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces urged the troop to invest in their mission and to be rigorous and exemplary during this mission. You will have to make sacrifices and surpass yourself, he said. Be worthy of the trust placed in you, and I am sure and worthy of it, said the general. In his speech, the General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim highlighted the unity, discipline, and dedication that characterized the ADF. As part of the emergency plan known as the ORSEC plan launched to assist people affected by the heavy rains in Djibouti, the capital, and the interior of the country, the government, in cooperation with the military units headed by the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, and civic associations, is working to alleviate the suffering of these families, particularly in the popular districts of Djibouti and Balbala. It should be noted that the President Ismail Murgele has ordered that the necessary measures be accelerated to restore the situation and enable the affected families to overcome the difficulties. In addition, the head of state reminded the members of the government of the urgent need to take all necessary measures to strengthen the mobilizations of services in order to increase the execution of cleaning operations and the release of drainage of water through the channels in the affected areas. On this day, November 28, a meeting was held at the headquarters of the Commander of the Gendarmerie. The meeting was attended by the Minister of the Interior, Mumin Ahmed Sheikh, the Minister of Housing, Amina Abdi, Colonel Zakaria Hassan Adan, Chief of Staff of the National Gendarmerie, and other senior officers of the institution who are involved in these operations to clear the main boulevards, avenues, streets, and areas in the District 3 and 4 of the municipality of Bil'aus. The objective of this meeting was to make an overall assessment of the resources committed to the work carried out, the work in progress, and the future activities implemented as part of the cleanup and mutual assistance operations. On this occasion, the Minister of the Interior affirmed that the Gendarmerie has done a remarkable job and to continue in this direction for the well-being of our compatriots in accordance with the instructions of the President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Armed Forces, His Excellency Ismail Mergeli. After the time of the assessment, let's take urgent actions. The Minister of Finance and Economy, Ilyas Moussaouali, went to the Kartila district to be at the bedside of the victims of the torrential rains that have heavily flooded the country. In a guided tour of street to street and house to house, the minister met with the inhabitants, listened to their complaints, and observed the significant human losses and material losses damage up close. An action of solidarity, Minister Ilyas Moussaouali by his close collaborators became aware of the situation, including houses buried following the floods, and as well as this meeting with the inhabitants of the Kartila district follows the request of the President of the Republic to establish a closer diagnosis of each citizen throughout the country. Early this morning, the Republican Guard assisted the victims of the severe floods with its participation in the cleanup operations. Indeed, since the launch of the Orsec plan by the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Mergeli, by actively participating in assistance in humanitarian operations, the High Command of the Republican Guard, under the supervision of Colonel Mohammed Jama Douali, Commander of the Republican Guard, has taken all the necessary measures and has spared no effort by mobilizing all its human and material resources to carry out cleaning, mutual aid, and solidarity operations. It is with this in mind and following the distribution of taxes that the elements of the Republican Guard have implemented considerable resources to assist as closely as possible the victims. The Republican Guard has spared no effort and has distinguished itself during the following works, particularly the cleaning of sewers, the collection of bulky waste, the elimination of standing water at the District 1, 2, and City of Ingela. In addition, the High Command of the Republican Guard, headed by Colonel Mohammed Jama, reassures the population of their support in the face of this sudden and intense disaster of which they are victims, and fully demonstrates once again their effectiveness in crisis management while reaffirming the fraternal ties that unite them with the Djiboutian people. Moving on to the international news, Namibians vote in presidential and national assembly elections. More details with Dini Musa.
Namibians went to the polls on Wednesday 27 to elect their new president. About 1.3 million people are registered to vote on the electoral rolls, in which parliamentarians will also be elected. The Namibian Electoral Commission urged all eligible citizens to go to the polls to vote and help to establish the country's electoral and democratic culture. President Haj Yinrub, Namibia's third leader since the country is sparsely populated and largely arid states freed itself from the chains of apartheid in South Africa in 1990, is seeking a second and final term of office with 1.3 million registered voters. He faces 9 opponents, including Pandoli Itola, a dentist who became a politician and is a member of the ruling SWAPO party, but who presents himself as an independent candidate.
The Iranian consulate in Iraq has been burned down, where the demonstrators are targeting Tehran. Explanations with Dini Musa.
Nearly 2 months after the challenge of power in Iraq began, the demonstrators crossed a new course on Wednesday evening. They set fire to the Iranian embassy in the city of Najaf under the cries of "Iran out." The consulate team was able to be evacuated. The police threw tear gas grenades, injuring some 50 people. The Iranian embassy in the country's other holy site, Karbala, has already gathered the demonstrators' anger at the beginning of the month, but there, Iraqi security forces responded, killing 4 people. The protesters targeted this building in particular because they accused Tehran of pulling the strings in Iraq. For them, the political system designed by the Americans, who overthrew Saddam Hussein in 1923, is out of breath. A abandoned by Washington. Iraq, they say, has fallen into the hands of Iran. Earlier in this day, 5 demonstrators were killed by police, leaving more than 350 dead and 15,000 injured since the start of the protest on October 1. The country has been paralyzed since then. In the south, especially schools and administrations are closed.
And that's all for this news. Thank you for joining us on the radio television of Djibouti and have a good night.